It's on the lips of every wrestling fan, of every promoter, of every sports right across this great land and every arena that we go to.
In fact, it was a great match. The pity of it all was at the conclusion that Nikita Koloff stooped to using a foreign object to steal the world television title from the longest reigning champion of all time. And of course, I'm talking about Tully Blanchard.
J.J. Dillon is a name that wrestling fans won't forget. Whether he was managing legends, making power moves backstage, or stirring up drama, he left his mark on the business. But with success came controversy. Some of it was scripted, designed to get fans riled up. But some of it, that felt all too real. Was he just playing the role of a master manipulator, or was he really one? J.J. Dillon's journey in professional wrestling started the way most fans dream about, watching his first match in Trenton, New Jersey, and running a fan club for his favorite wrestler, Johnny Valentine. His passion for the business put him in the right place at the right time, allowing him to meet industry giants like Toots Mondt and Vince McMahon Sr. while working as a program seller at events. His debut match was a tag team bout alongside Arnold Scotland, and his first singles match was against the legendary Killer Kowalski in Pittsburgh. Dillon started in the ring, but he quickly realized he was even better outside of it. He had the gift of gab, a sharp mind for strategy, and the kind of charisma that made people either love him or love to hate him. As a manager, he was always scheming, always a step ahead, and that's what made him dangerous. His first brush with controversy came when he managed Buddy Landel, a cocky upstart who dared to call himself the real Nature Boy, challenging Ric Flair. Dillon, ever the instigator, made sure Landel got under Flair's skin. He talked trash, interfered in matches, and pulled every dirty trick in the book to keep his guy in the spotlight. If that meant bending the rules, so be it. One of the biggest examples of Dillon's manipulation happened when he was managing Tully Blanchard Enterprises. At the time, Baby Doll was a key part of the group, and fans loved her. She brought a unique energy to the team, and her presence made Tully Blanchard seem even bigger. But in a shocking twist, Dillon framed her for stealing money, leading to her being kicked out. Fans were furious. Baby Doll had been a fan favorite, and watching her get turned on like that felt cruel. It was the kind of betrayal that made fans genuinely angry. Of course, it was all part of the storyline, but it made Dillon look like the ultimate schemer, someone who would throw anyone under the bus to stay in control. This was classic wrestling storytelling. Betrayal, shifting alliances, and backstabbing were nothing new in the business. But Dillon played the role so convincingly that some fans wondered if he was really like that in real life. His character represented how cutthroat the wrestling world could be. 1 minute, you're on top, and the next you're out. Wrestling had always been built on drama, and Dillon knew exactly how to deliver it. But Dillon didn't just stop at double-crossing teammates. He also pushed boundaries in ways that sparked real-world outrage. In one promo, he made an offensive comment about Mexicans that almost got his promotion thrown off TV. Even in an era when villains were expected to say controversial things, this crossed a line. Wrestling companies thrived on making fans hate the bad guys, but sometimes that approach went too far. This was one of those moments. Dillon also knew how to keep things shocking. During a promo with Dick Murdoch, he used cow manure as a prop to insult cowboys. It was crude, ridiculous, and, believe it or not, led to a 6-month storyline. In wrestling, the more outrageous, the better, and Dillon understood that better than most. He knew how to push people's buttons and keep them engaged, whether they were cheering or booing. His most iconic role, however, was as the manager of the Four Horsemen. If Ric Flair was the face of the group, Dillon was the brains. He pulled the strings, made sure they stayed dominant, and did whatever it took to keep them ahead of the competition. One of the most infamous Horseman moments came when they attacked Dusty Rhodes in a parking lot. It was brutal, it was realistic, and it blurred the lines between fiction and reality. Fans were so convinced it was real that some even wanted the Horsemen arrested for assault. That's how good Dillon was at telling a story. Dillon wasn't just a talker either. He even stepped into the ring for War Games, a brutal 5-on-5 cage match. Usually, he was the fall guy, the one who took the loss so the active wrestlers could stay strong. But that didn't mean he avoided punishment. In one match, he took the Road Warrior's Doomsday device and walked away with a separated shoulder. He wasn't just playing a villain, he was willing to take real risks for the sake of the story. His influence extended far beyond what fans saw on TV. Dillon moved from being an on-screen character to working behind the scenes in WWE and later WCW. But controversy followed him there too. His departure from WWE in 1996 is still surrounded by mystery. Some say it was about money. Others believe Vince McMahon thought Dillon was negotiating with WCW behind his back. Dillon denied any wrongdoing, saying he just ran into Scott Hall at Disney World and had a casual conversation, but the rumors never really stopped. When he did join WCW, things didn't get any less complicated. Eric Bischoff, one of WCW's top executives, accused Dillon of trying to share confidential WWE salary information. Dillon denied it, saying he might have had general knowledge but never gave away specifics. Whatever the truth, it only added to his reputation as someone who knew how to navigate the wrestling business, sometimes in ways that weren't entirely ethical. J.J. Dillon had his fair share of backstage drama during his time in WCW, but one particular confrontation stood out. It happened with Vince Russo, a man known for shaking things up in the wrestling world. Russo, who was part of WCW's creative team, stormed into Dillon's office doorway one day and just lost it, yelling, ranting, and going off in what Dillon later described as a completely one-sided screaming match. Dillon's secretary and another staff member were right there, watching the whole thing unfold. It was the kind of unprofessional outburst that left an impression. What makes this story even more interesting is what happened years later. At a wrestling event in New York, Russo actually apologized. He walked up to Dillon, owned up to the past, and said sorry for how he had acted. It was a rare moment of reflection in an industry where grudges can last a lifetime. But the fact that this blow-up happened in the first place points to some serious tension in WCW's management. Maybe it was a clash of creative styles. Maybe it was just two strong personalities colliding. Either way, it was another example of the chaos behind the scenes during WCW's final years. But while that was just one heated argument, there were far more serious allegations surrounding Dillon's time in WCW. In 2000, the company was hit with a racial discrimination lawsuit, and Dillon's name came up in some troubling accusations. Pez Whatley, a former wrestler and trainer at WCW's power plant training facility, gave a deposition that painted a damning picture of Dillon's role in holding back black wrestlers. Whatley claimed that Dillon actively prevented African-American trainees from advancing in the company, even going so far as to call him as racist as they come. One particularly disturbing accusation involved Dillon referring to a black wrestler named Moses Williams as the good you-know-what because he didn't stir up trouble. Whatley also mentioned that Dillon had expressed approval of a country song that included the same racial slur. It wasn't just Whatley making these claims either. Teddy Long, a respected figure in the wrestling business, allegedly told another wrestler, Bobby Walker, that he knew Dillon did not like black persons. These accusations weren't just about Dillon as an individual. They suggested a larger issue within WCW. Jody Hamilton, the man who ran the power plant, was also named in the lawsuit for alleged racist behavior. If true, it would mean that systemic discrimination played a role in shaping which wrestlers got opportunities and which ones were held back. Of course, WCW was already on shaky ground by this point. The company was struggling financially, management was a mess, and within a year it would be bought out by WWE. Whether these allegations played any role in the company's downfall is hard to say, but they certainly added another dark chapter to WCW's troubled history. As if Dillon's professional controversies weren't enough, he later found himself in an unexpected public dispute, this time over money, and in a twist that no one saw coming, it all played out on television. From screaming matches with Vince Russo to serious accusations of racial discrimination and even a televised legal battle, Dillon's career has been anything but quiet. For the fans out there who really liked him, here is a quick rundown of his epic career. J.J. Dillon's wrestling career wasn't an instant success. In fact, there were times when he had to step away from the ring completely just to make a living. Wrestling didn't always pay the bills, and when the business slowed down, he took a job working for a trucking company. It was steady work, but it wasn't his passion. No matter how far he strayed, wrestling always called him back. he couldn't stay away for long. His return to the ring was thanks to a huge opportunity from the legendary Bruno Sammartino. Dillon found himself in Pittsburgh, working under Sammartino, who helped him secure more bookings. It was a turning point. He started getting more matches, gaining more experience, and his name began to mean something in the business. But the real breakthrough came in 1970 when he made a connection that led to a job with Jim Crockett Sr. in the Carolinas. By April 1971, Dillon was wrestling full-time, and that was when everything changed. His first match in Charlotte was against Gene Anderson. He wasn't sure what to expect, but it went surprisingly well. Well enough that he ended up staying in the territory much longer than he originally planned. Wrestling in the Carolinas gave him a steady stream of work, but he also took matches in other places, like the Maritimes in Canada, where he was well received by the fans. But as steady as things seemed, wrestling could be unpredictable. There were times when he had to return to trucking work just to make ends meet, but he always found his way back to the ring. He couldn't help it. Wrestling was in his blood. Over time, Dillon started to realize something about himself. While he was a solid in-ring competitor, his real talent lay in talking, strategizing, and commanding attention. He wasn't just a wrestler, he was a storyteller, and his words could draw just as much heat as any move in the ring. One of the biggest moments in his wrestling career came when he got the chance to have a televised match with NWA World Champion Dory Funk Jr. That match led to rematches and put him in the spotlight in a way he hadn't been before. It was the start of a major shift in his career. If there was one thing Dillon would be remembered for, it was his time as the manager of the legendary Four Horsemen. Ric Flair, Tully Blanchard, Ole Anderson, Arn Anderson. Together, they were one of the most dominant heel factions of all time, and Dillon was the mastermind behind it all. He orchestrated some of the most controversial moments in wrestling history, including the infamous parking lot attack on Dusty Rhodes. He was the mouthpiece, the strategist, the one who made sure everything ran smoothly. But he wasn't just the brains of the operation, he took his fair share of punishment too. In the brutal War Games matches, he often played the designated fall guy for the Horsemen, taking the brunt of the violence. In one match against the Road Warriors, he even suffered a separated shoulder, but that was just part of the job. By 1989, Dillon's career took another turn. He stepped away from managing and moved into a behind-the-scenes role with WWE, then WWF. This time, he wasn't working in front of the camera. He was working in talent relations, helping to coordinate travel, smoothing over conflicts between wrestlers and Vince McMahon, and even contributing creatively. One of his biggest contributions during this time was helping to book WrestleMania 8 while Pat Patterson was on leave. It was a different side of the business, but Dillon adapted quickly. His time with WWE came to an end in September 1996, though some sources claim it was 1997. The exact reasons for his departure have never been entirely clear. Some speculate it was due to financial struggles related to a house loan, while others believe he was negotiating with WCW behind the scenes. Dillon himself has spoken about his exit on his podcast, sharing his version of the story. Whatever the case, he didn't stay out of wrestling for long. Shortly after leaving WWE, he joined WCW in an executive role. Working for WCW brought its own set of challenges and controversies. One of the biggest scandals came when Eric Bischoff publicly accused Dillon of trying to leak confidential WWE salary information after joining WCW. Dillon denied the accusation, insisting that while he had a general understanding of WWE salaries, he never shared specific details. Another tense moment in WCW came when he had a heated argument with Vince Russo, one of the company's creative minds. According to Dillon, Russo stood in his office doorway and screamed at him. Though Russo later apologized, it was a clear sign of the dysfunction within WCW at the time. But perhaps the most serious controversy surrounding Dillon's time in WCW involved allegations of racial discrimination. As part of a lawsuit against WCW in 2000, former power plant trainer Pez Whatley testified that Dillon had actively hindered the progress of African-American trainees, calling him as racist as they come. Whatley also claimed that Dillon made racially insensitive remarks. Teddy Long, a respected African-American wrestling figure, reportedly supported Whatley's accusations. It was a dark cloud over Dillon's career, one that still sparks debate among wrestling fans. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more about the legends of wrestling, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update, and let us know in the comments. What's your favorite J.J. Dillon moment? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.